Direct News TV. June 30, 2023. Russia-Ukraine War, Kyiv realigns army after Wagner mutiny. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky orders the military to strengthen the northern sector near Belarus, where Wagner Group leader Yevgeny Prigozhin is exiled after leading a mutiny. Pope Francis sees no apparent end in sight to the war in Ukraine after his peace envoy finishes 3 days of talks in Moscow. Wagner's future in Africa is up to them, Russia's Lavrov. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says the future of Wagner forces in various African countries is a matter for those governments that write up the contracts. Lavrov said Wagner had worked in Central African Republic, CAR, and other countries on the basis of contracts drawn up directly with the governments concerned. He added that Russia's defense ministry has several hundred military advisors working there. Putin discusses Ukraine and Wagner mutiny with India's Modi. Putin discussed the conflict in Ukraine and the Wagner mutiny in a telephone call with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the Kremlin said. The statement from the Kremlin added that Modi had expressed support for the Russian leadership's decisive actions in handling the rebellion last Saturday. Zelensky orders commanders to boost northern defenses. President Volodymyr Zelensky has ordered his top military commanders to boost defenses in the northern military sector as the Wagner Group leader arrives in Belarus. The decision is for Commander-in-Chief, Valery Zaluzhnyi and North Commander, Serhiy Nave to implement a set of measures to strengthen this direction, Zelensky said on Telegram. During the meeting, government and military leaders also heard a report from the country's intelligence and security forces about the situation in Belarus, Ukraine's northern neighbor. On Tuesday, Yevgeny Prigozhin flew to Belarus from Russia under a deal negotiated by Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko that ended the Wagner Group's mutiny on Saturday. War in Ukraine seems to have no end, says Pope Francis. Pope Francis says there is no apparent end in sight to the war in Ukraine as his peace envoy completes 3 days of talks in Moscow. The tragic reality of this war that seems to have no end demands of everyone a common creative effort to imagine and forge paths of peace, the Pope told a religious delegation from the Patriarchate of Constantinople. The Vatican added that the papal envoy, Italian Cardinal Matteo Zuppi, had finished his consultations in Moscow, where he had met one of Putin's advisors, Yuri Ushakov, and the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, Patriarch Kirill of Moscow. The visit was aimed at identifying humanitarian initiatives, which could open roads to peace, the statement said. It added that further steps would be taken but gave no details. Russian official accuses Kyiv of planning terrorist attack at nuclear plant. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Maria Zakharova, says Ukraine is preparing to commit a terrorist attack at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, ZNPP. On Telegram, Zakharova wrote, additional devices have been installed in Kyiv to measure radiation, city officials said. Recently, in a number of regions of Ukraine, exercises began in case of an accident at the ZNPP. Kyiv authorities are preparing to commit another terrorist attack. Ukraine to get $1.5 billion loan from World Bank. The World Bank has approved a $1.5 billion loan to Ukraine to support reconstruction and recovery, Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal said. On Telegram, Shmyhal said, along with guarantees from the Japanese government, the funds would be channeled to support social security and economic development. In particular, the loan will help support subsidies for internally displaced people and pension payments, Shmyhal said. On Thursday, the International Monetary Funds Board completed its Ukrainian loan review, allowing Kyiv to immediately withdraw $890 million for budget support. The Finance Ministry said so far it received $3 billion in budget support from Ukraine's partners in June, with 40% of it provided as grants. Russia demands explanation from Poland over arrest of hockey player. Russia has demanded an explanation from Poland over its arrest of Russian citizens, state news agency RIA reported, citing Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova. Poland said it arrested a Russian ice hockey player on suspicion of having spied for Moscow while playing for a Polish club. The detained man is a professional athlete from a first division hockey club, said a Polish government statement, adding that the Russian national, living in Poland since 2021, was charged with espionage and remanded into custody for 3 months. On the territory of Poland, he carried out tasks for foreign intelligence, including identification of critical infrastructure in several regions, the statement added. On Wednesday, the Kremlin also accused Poland of having a frenzied Russophobic position. Russian politician, 2 Ukrainians charged with war crimes, Kyiv. Ukrainian prosecutors have charged a Russian politician and 2 suspected Ukrainian collaborators with war crimes over the alleged deportation of dozens of orphans from Kherson. The charges brought by Ukraine's prosecutors follow a wider investigation carried out in cooperation with the Hague-based International Criminal Court, ICC, which also issued an arrest warrant against Russian President Vladimir Putin for his alleged involvement in the deportations of children. Yulia Yusenko, head of Ukraine's Department for the Protection of Children's Interests, told the Reuters news agency, it was not a one-day event. 48 children, in the Kherson region children's home were forcibly displaced, deported. We don't know how these children are, in what conditions they are kept, or what their fate is. President Zelensky meets with Greta Thunberg. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has met with the Swedish environmental activist Greta Thunberg and prominent European figures forming a working group to address ecological damage from the war. The working group includes former Swedish Deputy Prime Minister Margot Wallström, European Parliament Vice President Heidi Hautala and former Irish President Mary Robinson. Zelensky said forming the group is a very important signal of supporting Ukraine. It's really important. We need your professional help. Thunberg said Russian forces are deliberately targeting the environment and people's livelihoods and homes and, therefore, also destroying lives. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, third from left, meets with environmental activist Greta Thunberg, third from right, European Parliament Vice President Heidi Hautala, fifth from right, former Swedish Deputy Prime Minister Margot Wallström, second from left, and former Irish President Mary Robinson, center, in Kyiv, Ukraine, on June 29, 2023. Ukrainian Presidential Press Office via AP. Russia's Lavrov denies Moscow attacks civilian targets. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov denies that Russia intentionally attacked civilian targets in Ukraine, saying it only targeted military infrastructure or other military targets. Speaking at a news conference, Lavrov instead accused Ukraine of deploying troops and heavy weapons at places such as schools and apartment buildings. He said such tactics were war crimes. Ukraine and its Western allies have repeatedly accused Moscow of targeting civilian infrastructure, including hospitals, power stations and residential buildings. The West wants to freeze the conflict to send arms, Russia's Lavrov. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said he believed the West somehow wanted to freeze the conflict in Ukraine to buy time to pump more weapons into that country. Speaking at a news conference, Lavrov accused Western countries of taking a schizophrenic approach to the conflict. At first, he said, the West wanted to see Russia lose on the battlefield and for its leaders to go on trial and only then to press for peace in Ukraine. Forces are advancing in all directions, says Ukrainian official. Ukraine's deputy defense minister says forces are advancing in all directions in their counteroffensive against Russian troops. If we talk about the entire front line, both east and south, we have seized the strategic initiative and are advancing in all directions, Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar told Ukrainian television. Maliar added that troops were moving confidently around Bakhmut. In the south, we are moving with varying success. Sometimes there are days when it is more than a kilometer, sometimes less than a kilometer, sometimes up to 2 kilometers, she said. She noted that the effectiveness of the counteroffensive should be evaluated by a lot of different military tasks. Therefore, all these tasks are being carried out and only the military can assess this correctly and accurately, and according to their assessment, everything is going according to plan, she said. Russia will always emerge stronger, Russia's Lavrov. In response to a question about the Wagner Group's aborted mutiny last weekend, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said his country has always emerged stronger and more resilient from any difficulties. We do not have to explain anything or give assurances to anyone. We are acting transparently. The president and all the political forces in our country have spoken on the subject. If there are doubts in the West, that's your problem, said Lavrov. My name is Kingsley. Please like, share, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be the first to be notified whenever we post. You won't regret it.